Hello and welcome to the session. In this video, we'll look at value window function. So this is the part 1 of the video. We have divided it into two parts. In this part, I'll cover two window functions, and in the next video, we'll look at the other two value window functions. So value window functions, they are very powerful tools that allow us to perform calculation on specific subset of rows. So I can compare current row with the previous row or the next row or the first row of the partition. Those kind of flexibility is provided by value window functions. We will look at how we can do this using these functions. So we will be covering four value window functions: lag, lead, first value and last value. In this part 1 of the video, we will cover lag and lead. And in the second part, we will cover first value and last value. So now let's look at lag. So lag allows us to access data from the previous row in our data set. So this is useful when we want to compare values between two adjacent rows. If you think intuitively, lag means that things are slowing down. What you are viewing is not the current state, it is the previous state. So intuitively, lag means that you want to access the previous row rather than the current row and access that value. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Let's say we have a data set of the employees in the hospital and what is their salary. So we have employee ID column where we have ID of each of the employee. Now an employee with ID 101 has joined before an employee with ID 102. So these are sequenced in terms of their date of joining. When do they join? Lower employee ID means that he joined earlier compared to the one which has a higher employee ID. And then we have a name column with name of the employee. And then what we have is department of these employees. There is nursing, administration, pharmacy, etc. And then the fourth column has the salary of that employee in US dollars. So let's say we want to display the salary of a previous employee, right? Corresponding to each employee, we want to do that for each of the department. For example, let's say for nursing department, the first employee who joined was Sarah, and then Rebecca at 103 employee ID, and the third employee was Jessica. Now for each of these employees in their row, we want to get the salary corresponding to the previous employee who joined before them in that department. So for Sarah, no one joined before her in nursing. So for this, we won't have any value. For Rebecca, we would have the salary corresponding to Sarah because she joined before Rebecca. So we will have her salary in this row, which is 65,000 US. And the third employee in nursing is Jessica. For her, the previous employee is Rebecca. She joined before her in nursing department. So for Jessica, in this row, we will have Rebecca's salary, which is 55,000. Let's understand this with the help of the SQL code. So MySQL is the database where hospital data is present. So let's first look at our data set. So using select star from our data set, which is hospital underscore employees. We can run this. We can look at the data. So it has employee ID, name of the employee, department in which they work, and their salary. Now we want to display the previous employee salary corresponding to each employee within the department. We want to find this across the department. So we'll do select star to see all the columns, and now we will create our column using lag function. We want to find lag of salary. So we will provide salary column here, and we want to partition it across department. So we will partition it by department And we want to do it such that the employee who joined first, right, should first come in the partition, right? So Sarah, she joined first. That's why for within nursing, she should be seen first, followed by Rebecca and then Jessica. So I have to order this by your employee ID, because a lower employee ID means that that person joined the person which is having a higher employee ID. So we can do this and call it as previous pay salary. Then we can do from our table. We can run this. So what this has done is it has created the lag with respect to the current row. So my current row is James for the first person. Now because there is no lag row, no row before this, so it is blank or null. Similarly for Laura, we can see there is a row, is James. He joined before Laura. So we can see his salary corresponding to Laura's row. Similarly for Olivia, we can see the previous employee salary is 70,000. Within the next partition again for Sarah, she was the first employee within this department. So it is blank. There is no lag for her. But for Rebecca, Sarah joined, so we can see her salary. For Jessica, Rebecca's salary could be seen in this. Right? Now, regarding the lag syntax, so it takes column name, which is very important. Now, there are two more arguments which are optional. We can provide them if we want. So for example, the first argument is what lag value we want. We want to pick the previous row, one row before the current, right? We can provide one here, 2, 3, 4, whatever previous row we want to. Let's say I can provide one. And let's say I want, the third argument is the default value that you want to fill it with if you have a blank one. So in this case, for the rows where we don't have any lag, it will be filled with 0. So it gets filled with 0. Similarly, I can change this to 2. What this will do is it will look at two previous row and minus 2 row compared to the current nth row. So for James, we don't see any n minus 2 row. For Laura also, there is a n minus 1 is James, but there is no n minus 2 row. So for Laura also, if I give 2 as argument is offset. This is called as offset. So if I give 2 as offset, this will be blank. But for Olivia, you can see there is a n minus 2 row. Is 2 rows previous to the current James salary. So this will come here, right? So in each of these partitions, the first 2 rows will be filled with 0 because I am filling the blank or null with 0 by default, right? And the rows after that will have the lag value. For example, administration have the first 2 as 0, nursing also have first 2 as 0, then pharmacy also, right? So this was the syntax with respect to the lag function. Now you might be wondering how the lag function is going to really help, right? Now let's say you want to compare the salaries. You want to see how the salary increased as more and more people join. What you can do is you can subtract, right, the previous employee salary and the current row salary. Let's see how we can do. So let's say select star and I'll pick this one. Let's give offset as 1 because we just want the previous row, right? Now what I can do is I can find the difference. So salary underscore USD minus creating this, right? I can just subtract it. So I can give it within bracket and we can rename it as the difference in salary. So what this is doing is it is comparing, it is checking whether the current employee's salary is greater than the previous. If this is a positive number, then it means that greater. But if it is not a positive number, it means that the current employee joined at lower salary. Okay, so we can compare, we can see the difference, right? For example, for Laura, her salary is 5,000 lower than James with respect to the previous employee. Olivia also joined at 20,000. So like this, we can find these differences. This is a way in which we can use lag windows function. Now, we can look at the syntax, right? Like we did in our query. We selected our columns using select star. Then there is a lag function which takes column or expression. And there are two optional arguments. The square bracket means that these arguments are optional. Offset means whether you want to look at one previous row and minus two row. Default value is when there is a blank or null, then you'll fill that with this default value. And then over partition and order, there again optional argument. So now you understood that how lag function allows you to access data from a previous row. Now let's see how the lead function works. So the lag and lead functions are very similar. The only difference is that the lead functions allow you to access the data from the next row in the results. The lag was looking at the previous row, which is n minus 1. The lead is looking at the next row, which is n plus 1 or n plus 2, allowing us to easily compare values between current and next rows. So now again we'll be using the same data set. And let's say now I want to display the next employee's salary corresponding to each employee for each of the department. For example, for nursing department, we were looking at the previous row. Now we want to look at the next row. So for Sarah, the next salary was for Rebecca. He joined after that. So for the row corresponding to Sarah, we will have 55,000. For Rebecca, the next one is Jessica's salary, is 60,000. So for this row, we will have 60,000. But now for Jessica, there is no row within the nursing department. There is no one who joined after Jessica. So for this row again, we will have blank. So in case of lag, you had blank for the first row, but in case of lead, you will have blank for the last row of the partition. Okay, now let's go back to the database. Now we will be using the same data set, which is hospital employees. Now let's understand lead. Okay, we'll look at lead. Now I can again select star. I can pick all the columns and we will use our function lead. Again, I want to do it on salary. So I'll pick salary underscore USD. And we can partition it using overviews. So partition by, again, we want to partition by department. The order will remain same based on their joining, which is based on their employee ID. So I'll order by employee ID. By default, I'll keep it ascending. Let's say next employee salary. And from and then our table, which is hospital underscore employee. Okay, now we can see that the first row of the partition for James, Laura's salary comes in this row, right? And for Laura's salary, the next person who joined was Olivia. Her salary is seen, right? And For the last row of the partition, it is blank, like this. Just like lag, we have the same syntax for lead. The second argument, which is optional, is offset, and the third argument is the default value. Now again, I can provide the default value. Let's say I give again offset to be 1. I want to look at the next row. And let's say default value, we want to pick 0. Right? Now what this will do is, will fill the default value to be 0. Similarly, I can take offset to be 2. Right? Okay. Create a command 8 that as 2. So now what I'm saying, we want to look at n plus 2 rows, which is 2 rows after the current, right? So for this, we have a 2 row after the current row, which is for Olivia. But for Laura, we don't have any row at n plus 2, 2 rows after the current row, right? So for Laura and Olivia, we will get 0 here as a default value. So we learned how we can use lead and lag and how we can use them to create or to get previous row or the next row corresponding to the current row. We have the flexibility to pick n-1 or n-2 or whatsoever previous row we want to pick. Similarly, we have the flexibility to pick the n plus 1, n plus 2 or any number of next row. The syntax is exactly same. We have column or expression that we have to provide, and then the other two arguments are optional. All right. So that's all from this lecture. Let's meet in the next one.